But here we go. What's up, everybody? This is Mac Antigua here from the National Office of Public Allies here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Thanks for joining us on another edition of the Peer Coaching #Education #EdReform Peer Coaching Hang. Bless you. For a second, for those just turning in, we bring together our alum once a month we have one alum hosting, which I'll introduce in one hot second. We also have another alum from our network sharing a challenge or dilemma with us, and we spend the hour using the power of the network to help coach that alum through the dilemma. So there you go. That's what we're trying to do on this pod. Good times. So to that being said, let's introduce my favorite co-host, one of my favorite alum, and of course, who happens to be one of the biggest Avett Brothers fans I know. So if you had a Venn diagram and you had all the circles, boom, this guy would be right in the middle. He's a 94 alum from Milwaukee, found Eagle Rock Fellowship in Eagle Rock School, and he's also got walking pneumonia. Daniel Condon, clap, 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 clap. Daniel Condon. Dan!
Thank you, MacArthur. I want to wish our viewers a happy Thanksgiving week. At Eagle Rock, we get to work on Thanksgiving, so that's awesome with our kiddos. I'm super psyched to introduce a friend. He was a previous colleague, and we loved him so much we brought him back. Dan Hoffman. I also enjoy his name quite a bit. Dan Hoffman. I don't even know what class you were from, buddy, but you were our Societies and Cultures Fellow, and he's back as the Language, Arts, and Literacy Instructional Specialist. Hi, Dan.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. It's good to be here, and it's 2010 was my alumni year. Hopefully you guys can hear me.
Awesome.
You sound great. Awesome.
So we'd love to, you're one of my favorite alum because you actually went off to public education after Eagle Rock. Can you just give a quick and dirty about where you were before we snatched you back?
Sure. So after my fellowship year, I traveled for a while, but eventually got back into the classroom, was able to do it, and used the teaching credential I got here at Eagle Rock as a public ally to teach social studies and entrepreneurship in Durham, North Carolina at Voyager Academy. And really put a lot of the skills I used during that time. I mean, honestly, that fellowship really prepared me for that. So spent 2 years working in that position and working in curriculum there in North Carolina, and kind of seeing what public education was like, charter school systems were like, and working in the public sector, and then have just returned this September to Eagle Rock to build my skills further so I can go back out and execute that mission again.
And you're supervising your very own ally.
I'm supervising my own ally for the first time, which is
Circle of Life.
Awesome. Circle of Life, it all comes full circle. And man, I forgot how hard, man. They work really, really hard.
Yes, they do. So, folks that have joined us previously know that we use one of about 200 different protocols. We've been using a consultancy, which we think works pretty snazzy here on the. And what I really love, I know Dan's familiar with these because you actually took some of this learning from Eagle Rock and implemented some of this at Voyager, so I know you're familiar with it. But we're going to invite you to share a little bit about your dilemma, and we've emailed a little bit about it, so I have a sense of what's coming. Mac has no idea, so it's going to be very exciting to hear the dilemma. So just the advanced organizer, and I'll take us through the steps. We're going to hear from Dan. You're going to share with us what your dilemma is, and then for bonus points, you're going to have a focus question for Mac and myself. And we're going to ask some clarifying questions before we get into some probing questions. Jack and I are going to have a little discussion while you metaphorically leave the room. But for a while, we'll be feverishly taking notes. Yes. So that's kind of quick and dirty. We'll be done in less than 52 minutes. Throw it over to you, Danny, and I'd love for you to share the dilemma that you're chewing on at Eagle Rock.
Cool. All right, so the dilemma that I've been really facing and coming back to a lot over the past few weeks and being new here is we have some things called power standards at Eagle Rock, and students have to complete a course or demonstrate a deep understanding of some concepts in order to graduate. And one of those concepts is expanding knowledge base. And so, or expanding their knowledge base. And the way that students do that at Eagle Rock is through a course called Research, where students do a 10-week research paper writing course. They choose a topic of their choice and have to write a 10-page, approximately 10-page research paper of their choice. And by doing that, and by doing the process of the research, they show us that they know how to expand their knowledge base and reach that power standard. That's combined with my previous knowledge coming from charter schools and Voyager Academy in particular, which was a project-based learning school, and really focused on project-based learning. And there are certain elements of project-based learning, including having culminating events that are real-world and tangible to students to get them engaged. And so I'd like to combine that pedagogy, and I'd like to create a research class that can help students meet that power standard, but also has a real-world culminating event that students feel is authentic, that students feel really bought into, and is not, and this is the problem that I'm running into, simply college prep. Because Eagle Rock is not a college prep school, and so for a lot of our students, having a college prep class where they're learning to write this formal academic paper isn't as relevant as it could be, since that's not a life choice that they're choosing to make after they leave Eagle Rock. The other thing is, I really don't like coming to students and saying, you know, well, you'll have to do this later in your life. Like, you know, you have to do it now. You have to suffer now through writing this research paper, because later on you'll have to suffer through writing a research paper. I'd rather the reason behind doing the research and creating a culminating event is more genuine and authentic. Like, you're doing it for this real world experience that's coming up at the end of the course, and so that they feel much more bought into that experience. I think the research is important, but the culminating event right now is just to write a paper that's theoretical, that I read, that my public ally fellow reads, and then we kind of give grades for, or give credit or not credit to it, but no one else reads it. It ends up in a vault somewhere as this theoretical thing, instead of something that's a real-world product that they could create. So I guess my focus and question is, how can we take a kind of college prep course that has this culminating event being a 10-page research paper, still focus on writing and research as elements that are essential to the course, but make the final product, instead of a theoretical research paper, something that is relevant, real-world, culminating event for students. So that's the dilemma that I'm really facing right now.
All right. I've been muting my own self to save you from my coughs for help. I don't know if you guys have your chat box up, but so what I got down for your focus question, Dan, was how can you take a college prep course, 10-page research paper, still focus on writing, but make the final product something that is relevant and real world?
Yes.
To students.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. You have anything else you want to share?
I think that there's some relevancy for students who are going to college. A paper like that does feel authentic to them, because they are feeling like they're training for that experience when they leave here to go into academia. But I just don't, so like I see value in that. I'm not saying that that's not valuable, but for other folks, or even for those students, to just not make it like theoretical training, but to make it real, to make it something that they feel like, wow, there's consequence to me doing this, that I am having some kind of impact that's going beyond me handing in something to my teacher, but it's this is project-based.
Awesome. Why don't we crack right into some clarifying questions? This is a 10-week class?
10-week class, yes.
And what's the, just to give folks a sense, how long is that block? How long is the class period?
That class period is 2 hours and 15 minutes. We usually work in a break in there, so there's about 2 hours of instruction, 4 days a week. So someone else who is good with math can do the total add up of that. 8 hours a week. I think 8 hours a week, 10 weeks, 80 hours of instruction. Right? So over 80 hours of instruction. Is that correct? Let's think about that.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Sounds good to me. I just said, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, 80 hours of instruction. Yeah.
Although it's not direct instruction. I mean, the class period is that long. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not like
half of it is me taking a nap.
Hoffman's got 80 hours of delivery stand-up. He's got 80 hours of power
standard.
content, yeah, power content to deliver.
All right. What else are you curious about, Mac?
Daniel, how many people are in your section, or how many people are taking this experience?
Usually the class, right now we have 10 students. The class probably goes up to, like, I would say between 8 and 12 students take the course every time it's offered.
Is it a class that is a required element, or is it sort of an elective? Right? What speaks to sort of the motivation for people to take your course, or can you speak to that?
Yeah, that's part of another issue that I'm having with it, but it might be for another one of these, is that it is a required course, so that the motivation is, I need to take this in order to graduate. So I need to suffer through this experience in order to graduate, instead of this is something I'm intellectually curious about, that I want to take to fulfill my requirement. And then that's very different. So for Eagle Rock, most courses are elective,
right.
And almost students have choice in almost every requirement that they fill. But this one is one of the very few fully required courses. So I see it as even more high stakes to make it really relevant and get there a lot of buy-in. And so it's not just like, oh, this is the right before I graduate, I know I have to suffer for 10 weeks. Yes, and get it done.
Right on. So I'm hearing you say is that there are very few required elements within a curriculum for someone to complete at Eagle Rock. This happens to be one of them, right? And so that might speak to the motivation or the level of some students out of year 12 may have when they're in it. There's going to be a varying level of sort of for the content.
Yeah, I think it's tricky because I think everyone takes this course who is getting close to graduation. They can see the finish line, so they're very motivated. They're very motivated to get their credit.
Right.
But I think what we're grappling with at Eagle Rock is to re-engage youth in their education. So, that's a very kind of traditional strategy. Like, you need to do this in order to get your credit so you can graduate. You'll need it some theoretical future. You'll need it. Instead of, this is something that's in real world and tangible, and you want to take this because it's important. It's a fine. Yeah. The reasons for the motivation are important to me.
Yeah, and it sounds like there's a lot more extrinsic motivation as opposed to intrinsic motivation at this time.
Exactly.
It's a little more out of whack than maybe you'd like.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. I'll defer to Dan. I might have more questions, but I want to pass the mic.
Well, I think we should step right into probing, because I have a question that didn't fit clarifying. And I know a little bit about this dilemma.
Yeah. Go
So,
ahead.
so probing questions, as you're aware, Mac,
Yes.
they're going to help Daniel Hoffman deepen his thinking about this dilemma. They are not, however, suggestions couched in a probing question. So we'll do our best, and I'm going to put some tips up for where we are now.
This is where I usually mess up. Like, I've guest paneled on every one of these, and I've usually done a good job of embedding a solution in a probing question. So I hope to go 6 for 6. I look forward to being tapped by the taser, the mind taser.
Yeah.
Like, stop putting that solution.
It's all good. So I guess my question, Dan, is like, what? And I know part of the answer, but where's the hook for them now?
I think there are 2 hooks for them now. One is the idea of being prepared for college, and that this is something they'll have to do in college. And so this is going to prepare them for that experience. And the other hook is you need to do this in order to graduate. And if you don't do it, you can't graduate. So get it done.
And do they have...
And then there's the third intrinsic hook, which I do see. I don't want to be like all doom and gloom about it. I think there are good elements of the course. Is students have choice over the research topics, so they get to choose something that they're passionate about, and then really get in depth with it. And I think that's the part that is intrinsic, and that part I want to keep. So for instance, right now we have a student, Joey, who's researching whether or not Pacquiao or Mayweather will win that theoretical fight, and he's done all this incredible research around that, and that's really cool that he gets to do that, and he's invested in that. So it's not just I have to finish this to graduate, and it's not just I'm preparing for college. It's also I'm having a good time digging deep into this topic that I'm interested in. So those are the 3 hooks that I think there are.
Mike, Dan, or Condon, are you done with yours, or can I? He's on mute. I'm assuming he's muting himself.
Sorry, yeah.
So that's right. So Hoffman, I'm just gonna use last names since there's no Daniel about it. Hoffman, so I heard you say there are 3 key motivations. One is I need to graduate. 2 is, I'm going to do this in college, so I better get good at it now. And 3 is, this is just a great excuse for me to dig deep on something I'm super passionate about because I have the freedom to check out this hypothetical Mayweather-Pacquiao match, which may never happen, but I love boxing, I can do all this. So right now, those are the 3 key motivators. And I guess I'm wondering, is there a way to make that, is this a solution? I'm sorry if it is. It sounds like they sound unequal in terms of weight, right? Or at least in the primacy of your students' minds, that those seem unequal. And I'm just sort of wondering, is there a way to make them less, either more equal or more balanced towards a place of passion as opposed to prerequisite?
I think that...
Dan, hold on, Condon, how'd I do? What's going on? How'd that work? No? Yes, no?
I think it was all right.
It's all right? It wasn't probing?
I want Hoffman to talk so we can see like the Dan cam. He's like moving around.
Go ahead.
This Hangout thing really sucks up the battery on your computer, so I'm going to get my charger before this thing flops on me.
That would be a dilemma.
That would be a dilemma. So, yeah, I think that what the question is, are they equal in my mind or in the students' minds? Is that the question?
I guess I'm wondering is that they seem less equal now.
They seem, yes. Well, in my mind, they seem way less equal.
Okay.
In the student's mind, yes, they're also less. It depends on the student. So we have some students who are planning on going to college, and for them, the college prep thing is the thing. We have some students who are not really that interested in their topic, or you know, and they just want to graduate, and graduation's coming soon, and they're trying to do that as soon as possible. So there's that's another motivator for them.
Got it.
And then we have some students like Joey with the Pacquiao fight who are just like super curious, and they're doing their thing. So I think it depends, and I think for me the thing that I really want to tap into is that third part, because you know, I think the two other ones are less authentic than that third one. So that's the meaty one to me, and to make that more authentic, see how I could do that.
What are the obstacles for that to happen?
I think there's a preconceived notion that hold on one second. I am switching.
All right, I think he's back here. I think he's switching spots. So while Dan is switching, Hoffman is switching his inputs here.
Yeah. Well, let's hope he comes back. But in the meantime, maybe we can chat with each other.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm struck by the real world implication for his students. I feel like the research, the quality of a research paper and those skills could be a byproduct to whatever this real world problem-based, I mean, like they're creating a solution that's research-based. And the solution for something they're passionate about is the hook, and they happen to be getting the research skill through that process.
Yeah, I think as we're still waiting for Dan Hoffman to come back on, so we're kind of like bypassing your protocol, but it's like mid reflection.
I see him there though.
What's that?
I see him. Is he still muted? Like I see at the bottom. I see.
Okay. Well, he's got to unmute himself.
Oh.
So send him a note to unmute himself, because I can't unmute him.
He says, "I'm here, but I'm not. We think you need to unmute yourself." Yeah. I also can't see you, Mac.
Oh no. There's me.
But I can hear you.
I think my reflection is real quick in real time. I imagine that's a required element, because part of the sort of credo or the concept of the school is, if you're going to be a leader in the world, right, you have to demonstrate an ability to leverage like logic, right, and support that with pieces. So that makes sense that that's what you want people to be able to leave Eagle Rock with, the ability to do that and to express oneself through written word. So research paper. So I guess that makes sense why it's a required element. It does seem to me that a lot of the juice of it, though, is away from. I see there. I think Dan's back. I see Dan back. See if I'm not trying to unmute him.
He says, "I'm here, but I can't unmute myself."
That's a bummer. Let's see if I can unmute him.
And I can. And I don't see your beautiful face.
That's weird.
But I can hear you just great.
Oh, okay.
Did you mute your camera by chance?
No.
Huh.
No, I'm good. I can see myself. Let's see if I can get Dan back in here. Can you hear us? Dan, can you hear us? Let's show him.
Can you hear us, buddy?
All right, Dan. I'll bring you.
He can hear us.
He can hear us. Oh yeah, there you go. How you doing, Dan?
But we can't hear.
Yeah, here it is.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey.
He's back.
Awesome.
Everybody leave. All right.
We're back. We're back in probing questions. We're back in probing questions, please.
Oh yeah,
all right. So
we're back to probing.
I liked everything you guys were saying.
Okay, we'll get there again.
I still want to probe.
Let's probe.
So,
a little bit more.
How do you know? I hear a sense of how do you know that's what people are coming into your classroom about? That they're all over the map. Like, how do you know that?
How do I know? They're pretty honest with me about their like they'll say like this is kind of BS. I don't need this. I don't want to write a research paper.
Okay.
To why do we have to do this? To I know I'm going to do this in college, so I want to do a really good job.
Okay.
So I hear those things are said in the context of the class. And then just knowing our student population and explicit mission. Like if you look at the admissions page on our website, it says Eagle Rock is not a college prep institution. So so then I have this conflict about this major required piece being so college prep focused. And that's internal to me. So it's a combo. And then some students I don't, maybe there is that kind of, there's the dilemma of, well, a student says that they aren't interested in college or the writing a research paper isn't something that's relevant, but they're going to change their mind at some point in their lives. And but we want to make sure that they're prepared for that. So it's a dilemma. It's on both sides.
I feel like following up with this, so it sounds like there's a lot tied into the concept of the term, like research paper has a lot of, it sounds like there's a baggage that comes with it.
Is that a question?
Yeah, I'm making a question. I've been through this how many times? How many years I've done this vertical, and I still managed to, I'm just leaning into the skid right now. Do you think that the term research paper has baggage attached to it that puts people into these frames that you just described, and is there a way of describing the experience that it removes people from this obligatory experience?
Yeah, I think that's. I think there's become a definition of what research is, and what I'm more concerned about is that. The connotation of what research has become is research is writing a research paper. So I want to flip that, and that what's become loaded is not the term research or paper, but is the term research. And so if you're going to do research, you must be writing a research paper, which and that I'm more worried about that. That becoming a loaded term, because I think that, like I said before, the choice, students having this choice, being able to choose a topic, being able to choose something and dive deep into it and investigate it, those are things that I think we should be doing a lot of. Yeah. And I see us doing a lot of it in different places, but because the only place where it's required, it's such a major graduation requirement. That becomes the loaded term of, oh well, research is this one thing, and research is college prep. Research is this formal academic thing, instead of what are the other possibilities of what it could be. I guess that's another investigation of what is research. What does that look like in other ways?
In terms of topics, is there? We heard Joey's topic about the bout, the fictional bout. What are there ever topics that are more problem-based, that they're trying to solve something? I'm just trying to get a sense of what's the range of what they're writing about.
Yeah. So in this is my first iteration of teaching the course, so I have limited data for myself, but we have topics ranging from hypnosis and psychotherapy to the Manny Pacquiao fight to human relationships and how relationships are healthy or unhealthy in given circumstances, to the history of Cecilia Payne, who was a scientist who discovered that stars are made out of helium. So
Mm.
They can cross the gamut. Most of them, though, are not necessarily problem-based. We encourage students to make claims and try to have a thesis that is unique, but they're not always or solving a problem. Though that is a direction that I've thought about trying to investigate more how to get them to that stage in doing research.
Thanks.
Dan, so Hoffman, so is there I hear that one of the products of this course is writing a research paper that has a rigor, right? That has some sort of rigor behind it. And it sounds like the product is the paper, and we sort of hinted that maybe the product doesn't have to be the paper. So there's one level of like deliverable, but I'm curious, are there other motivations for why people would write or produce something? I.e., I'm trying to influence, like for example, Mayweather Pacquiao. Could it be that their purpose is they want this reality to happen, so that's why they're talking about how great it would be? It would make so much money for the people in it, and right? Is there a drive? Is that part of it, or is it just like I need to create this paper and demonstrate I know how to use citations properly and have logic? I'm just sort of wondering, is that part of it? Because I wonder, because it sounds like that's where a lot of the focus is. Like I got to get this to get by, as opposed to I get to be influencing something. Or again, I'm just sort of curious about are there sort of intentionality behind why I'm writing a paper?
Yeah, I think that is that's key. So what you just described is pretty key for what I would like them to get to.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it's much more. I am writing this paper to show that I can use citations, show I can use logic, show I can make a claim, to show that, I mean, what really we want them to do is to use that paper to show that they've mastered something, so show that they've become an expert in a particular topic.
Right.
And so by crafting that paper, they're providing evidence to me that they've expanded their knowledge base on something that they're interested in. But it does not go beyond that. So the stakes for having the real world stakes, well, again, it's conflicting, because the real world stakes are, one, high, because if they aren't able to do that, they don't get to graduate, and two, low, because the paper is theoretical, so there's no, it just goes into a file cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't influence anybody about, the claim, the thesis around Cecilia Payne is that she was this great scientist who was forgotten about because of her gender. And she didn't get the credit she deserved because of her gender. So that that claim. Sorry, I'm going to try to move again because we got some noise in here. But that claim, she'll never get to influence anyone on that claim because it's just going to go into a file cabinet. So
yeah. But how might that be a different result? How does it not go to a file cabinet? I guess?
Well, I guess that's my dilemma, and I'm trying to figure out how we can do that. That right now is how do we get that out of the file cabinet into the real world? And if we do get it out of the file cabinet into the real world, does the assessment change? Is it still a research paper, or is it now a blog post, or a newspaper article, or a letter to an editor? And I should mention there was a previous iteration of this course that did have it was a multi-genre research project. So students didn't write just a research paper. They wrote journalism articles, or journal entries, or creative writing. So that gave more student choice. But I still think that those products still ended up in a file cabinet, even though they had more potential to, it was like less traditionally academic. They still ended up in a file cabinet. So, do we partner with a sports writer to get Joey's claims out there? Do we And if we do that, what do the logistics look like? Because, again, they run the gamut from Joey's paper about Pacquiao to a kind of historical paper about Cecilia Payne. So if it's running the gamut like that, how does everybody get that kind of real-world experience? And I'm not sure what the answer to that is.
Let's invite Hoffman, as Antigua refers to him, to just listen while Mac and I have a little chat with each other.
Okay, I might type, so you might hear me typing.
I hope you do. And so some of the things that we could talk about, Mac, as I pull up my cheat sheet. What did we hear? What didn't we hear that might be relevant? What assumptions seem to be operating? What questions does the dilemma raise for us? What do we think about the dilemma? And yeah, that sounds good. I mean, I feel like, and let me just restate the question. Dan's looking to figure out how to take this 10-page research paper class, still focus on writing, but make the final product something that is relevant in real world. I do think that the answer is about the real world audience, and now I don't know who that. And I heard Dan struggling with, going to be highly personalized too, based on what it is the papers are about. So I feel like his hunch is about, they're going to have more buy-in if they know something's going to be done with this and not put in the filing cabinet that we keep talking about.
Well, I think am I cutting you off, Condon? Did I cut you off?
You are not.
Okay. So I think what's really fascinating about this is that already, like, Hoffman is moving to the place of away from sort of like, how do we have more stakes of this besides you don't get to cross the dice without this, right? So, and immediately, right, my mind goes to, well, how does it matter to other people beyond Eagle Rock? And so I think what's interesting is the possibility, again, using the example of Pacquiao Mayweather, right? Like, there are a variety of spaces where that conversation is really relevant, right? Like, is it Ring Magazine? Is it boxing blogs? Is it convincing the WBC, right, or the firm? Maybe there's a part of it that's like, look, okay, when you're writing this paper, who is the audience that you're trying to go for? And understanding that maybe like the product you're giving for that audience might be rooted in this research, right? That's a process. But there's also, like, from that, you can create different products from that. It could be an infographic. It could be a cool 30-second video. But I think ultimately what it sounds like Hoffman's talking about is, if you're going to be a leader in the world, a thought leader in the world, you need to have something worth thinking about. And that's got to be rooted in stuff besides the power of magical thinking. Right? That has to be rooted in some sort of rigor. Right? And so when I hear that, like, to me, that seems like a really fascinating question. And you get to choose your own adventure. It can be on anything you want, maybe the given is, there's an audience, a market out there that wants to take it in, and maybe the proof of the pudding is, do they publish it on a blog, or do you get feedback on that beyond the two instructors? And maybe that's what indicates success. Maybe not if you publish necessarily, but if you even get feedback from a body that looks over now, again, the trick is, if you're doing a wide variety of topics, you might not have a unified, like, oh, you should go to this magazine or something. But I don't know, there's something about that even feels like that should be part of the exercise. Like, why are you writing about something if you don't think somebody's going to be interested in it outside of yourself? I don't know. That's what kind of strikes me. I play that game myself. Like, if you were to ask me if I could write about anything for fun that I would stay up late to write about, I already kind of think of what I'd be speaking to already.
Huh.
And I don't know. Maybe that's because I've been around the world a bit, so I get that. But maybe that's part of the process, is understanding, well, who would want to read it? That's what comes to mind for me, is like, how to move it beyond Eagle Rock is literally move it beyond Eagle Rock, get other people in on it. I don't know. That's one.
I mean, I hear it. Like, I feel like embedded in the dilemma is this is like something that Dan inherited, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know that I don't think that in this class he's going to be able to get to solve this, right?
Right.
And so it's like what can occur, what can happen in the future for him. I feel like, so I liked you tapping into your passions, Mac, and I wonder, like, what are the questions that would allow students to like find something that they're really juiced about, right? And I think it's more than the paper, and I think my hunch is that that's the direction Dan's talking about. It's like, what problem are you going to solve in this world? And oh, by the way, this research paper is a part of like communicating that. Or if it,
Right.
If it goes back to something, I think he mentioned the research piece. That can't be. That's not the end product. The end product is having some difference in the world, or if it's Joey. I mean, I think it can be deeper than that. Maybe there probably could be a problem he could solve still within the realm of that topic, but just something that raises the stakes for students.
Yeah, and I just sort of think that there are enough outlets out there that even if it isn't Time Magazine or something, like there are spaces like blogs or like places that accept content that would allow that platform for someone who had a well thought out, well researched take on something, or even better yet, maybe they have a well researched like 10-page piece, but they submit something that's like a teaser for that gets someone to want to look at the paper later. You know, I think that's what it is. It's like the external stakes matter, right? And again, I think back to like there are some fields like academia, which we kind of talked informally at the top, right? The whole industry is based on publishing, right? Like you need to publish. So they already have this well-documented infrastructure of, okay, if you're in this field, you write for this journal. You got to get published by this journal. It goes through this process. I think the challenge is that not every field has that infrastructure. So there has to be some level of background research, depending on the issue, how you want to get into that, perhaps. And maybe that's part of the process. Is it ultimately about writing a paper, or is it ultimately about being a thought leader on something? Maybe that's the shift. Because then it's like, oh, in order to be a thought leader, you have to prove your work, which is a research paper.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the shift. Yeah, I think that's something, that's super cool. I mean, that should be a work assignment. Like I wish our bosses were more intentional about like, you need to be a thought leader on this in the field. Like, what are you doing to have that rigor, or how are you using your own work to document that? And I think at least in the nonprofit world, there's no shortage of blogs or spaces that they're looking for content about it, which could get viral, or people could drive onto and get on. So that's one.
Yeah, I mean, it is tricky because this is a dilemma. This is a real dilemma.
Right. But I think, like you said, it's also the marketing of it, right? If people walk in going, I need to do this to finish,
right?
Yeesh. That's already like, that's rough city. I think Daniel has to figure out a way to build a tradition or build a new narrative around what this course is about, so it sets a different expectation.
Yeah.
People, like it's a capstone event. This is like, but it'd be, I guess the other thing about it is I think of like, from a public allies alumni standpoint, it'd be interesting to go like, oh, we have some students that are interested in script writing, right? So they're going to do a research paper on script writing. Like, I know several alum who write for television shows, right, at public allies, that I could get on Twitter and go like, would you read this person's thing, right? I mean, if it's access, maybe there's other ways to leverage networks to access people that matter, so it's not cold calls. So maybe that's the other element. And that's whole other set of work, right, that either Daniel will take on or his students would take on, which is how do I get people to see this
letter to
the
it's like it could be, so it's like nothing changes, but he refines like who the audience is. It's not just Dan and his fellow Aaron.
Right.
Like they do the heavy lifting in trying to find like an authentic audience that has some kind of skin in the game about whatever that topic is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I also think the thing about what might be attractive to someone who's being approached is that, you know, the Eagle Rock student represents a really unique voice, you know, and a really important voice, I think, emerging, you know, right now. So, I mean, that might be part of the hook, right, is that this is a person who's, you know, younger, someone who has a certain identification with parts of youth culture. You know, I think that might be a really interesting take, you know, for folks to want to like, oh, okay, I'd like to know what this person has to say, and especially if it's presented in a way that's really framed like fast, you know, again with rigor within the culture, perhaps that person's coming from. That might be another hook when people go like, oh, let me, you know, wouldn't it be great if this class was ultimately like a think tank, like for really compelling thought pieces on whatever, you know, like that'd be neat, you know, because I think that's what Daniel has going for him in terms of the group he's convening. Like those students are very unique and cool.
Or like the culminating project is, and I just happen to know that his last school just put on a TEDx, so it's like they put on a TEDx and these are the topics, right? So it's like the research paper is elemental for them to have like understood the topic, but their 5-minute piece kind of demonstrates that they understand what that. I mean, that raises the stakes. I feel like we haven't really solved the dilemma. I look forward to kicking it back over to Dan in a second, right? So, as always, it's delightful to chat with you, Mac. Let's bring Dan back in. But I'm wondering, are you anywhere, have we moved you anywhere, Dan? Other than to and from your office?
Moved like
we know physically you've moved places.
3 different
emotionally or intellectually, have you moved?
So yes, I've been moved. Yeah, I think there's key things that have come up to me. One is the focus on audience, and to me the research paper is very flexible to me about, you know, is this a blog post, is this a magazine article. Getting it out of the file cabinet, theoretical file cabinet, and into the hands of an audience is the key part. And maybe it still looks pretty much like a research paper, but we get folks, you know, from a blog somewhere on Boxing to publish that is key. And then the dilemma is, well, 12 super divergent topics. How do we ensure that each person gets that real world experience? Some are going to be easier than others. And what I was grappling with and taking notes on is there could be a correlation that's negative between student choice and real world audience, in that we could choose topics, we could give predetermined topics that have this real world implication. Or if it's about solving a real world problem, you know, I taught a class here when I was a fellow on Peace Jam, where students researched one of the 12 millennium goals from the UN, but now we've predetermined topics, so now there can't be that focus on the Pacquiao fight, which was kind of a magical experience for the student who didn't really want to do research and then got bought in because he had the topic, you know. So we all of a sudden get buy-in on this one level that it's real world. We lose buy-in on this this element that is choice-based. And so that's another dilemma that I came up with that I need to grapple with. And maybe it means trying, like, being really iterative and prototyping different courses like that have, and seeing what the results are, and seeing if students have greater buy-in or less buy-in on that level. I think the idea of a TEDx came up, and I think that's really interesting. It's interesting because there are two things that Dan kind of knew about from my old school. One is that they just did a TEDx. The other is, I think, Mac, you brought up the idea of it being a think tank, and the culminating event for my my entrepreneurship project was called Shark Tank, after that TV show.
Yeah.
And so I had that imprint, the think tank, Shark Tank. How can you, and that was real world. We had entrepreneurs come in and like judge people's business plans and things like that. So how can you create a kind of Shark Tank event, call it think tank, or whatever, and have people present ideas. And the thing, the other dilemma that comes up with that solution for me is that this is a 10-week course. 80 hours sounds like a lot, but we're down to the final 12, and it's like crunch time for them to write a paper and to prepare on top of that, prepare a presentation or prepare something else gets difficult. So maybe it's just the written piece gets presented to someone for feedback. I also like that idea. It doesn't need to be published. The audience just needs to be someone who's authentic. It just needs to be Joey's boxing coach in LA, or somebody who does, who teaches astronomy at a university, who's going to look at the Cecilia Payne work and write back. So maybe it doesn't have to be something that's going to end up in a public publication or on a blog even, but it is not in a file. It's a living, breathing thing because somebody else besides me read it. Someone who's relevant to that topic read it, and maybe that's part of the research. Is students have to find an expert in that field that they can start a conversation with about this, and just reach out to that person and say, "Hey, I'm doing research on this. I've written this piece, and I want to know what you think about it," and have that be part of the audience. And if they get to the point where they got it published on ESPN or in a journal, that's awesome. Like, let's shoot for the moon on that stuff. But even if it's a step in the right direction, even if they have one other person, I think, and that's why audience is key, one other person who looks at their work. And then the other thing I took away from it is Dan's piece about problem solving. And I think that leads to a bigger question about what research is. And is research just growing my body of knowledge inside me, or asking, or is it just participating in a conversation about a scientist, from the 19th century, or is it taking that a step further and offering a suggestion or a solution or identifying a problem and then working towards solving it? And that's a dilemma, I think, that expands beyond the framework of this course, but in the question of what does research mean at Eagle Rock, and how do we expand that definition, so that we're including that. I keep pointing at Dan's little picture, but no one can tell that that's what I'm pointing at. That's what Dan's talking about when he says is it solving a problem? Those are my big takeaways. I think that the first, I think a lot in terms of iterative processes, and that first iteration is how do we just find audience, even if it's one person, and then make that an explicit part of the course, that this paper needs to be shared with somebody besides Dan and Aaron. It needs to be shared with somebody who is knowledgeable about the topic that you're talking about. And how can you need to share that with that person and get feedback on your paper. And now it's opened it up to, well, my spelling, my grammar, my citations, all that stuff better be on point, not because Dan says so, not because I have to do this to graduate, but because I want to make sure that when I'm talking to this person in the real world, I'm really engaging with them, and I don't want to be embarrassed because I didn't back my stuff up. I don't want to go half-assed with it. I want to really pursue it. So I think that's the first step, and then those other bigger questions I want to add on as we go.
We're glad that you were able to solve your entire dilemma. Spend 58 minutes. I'm going to let Mac wrap this up, but what are you most forward looking to as you kind of I guess you've got for seven days of this class left. Do you think there's anything from this 58 minutes that you're going to take in the last 7 days?
No
pressure.
I think that I'm going to take things going into probably next trimester when I teach again.
Cool.
And this 7 days is these 7 days, and they're happening as they're happening. Yeah. So the dilemma is a little more, I think, a little bigger than the next 7 days can handle. But this is something that's going to be around for a long time, and we need to do work on it. So I'm more focused on what comes after.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thanks, Danny.
Yeah, I want to say thanks so much, Daniel Hoffman, for sharing, being vulnerable to share your challenge with us, and on YouTube forever and ever. So thanks for doing that. Thanks for Dan Condon again for hosting this. He finds the dilemmas every month, and we get together to do it. And you're welcome to join us if you want to join and ask questions. And you see, I get it wrong, so you can't possibly be any worse than I am at probing questions. So we definitely welcome either space. Join it. We'd love to have you be in it. Or if you have a dilemma, let us know. Email me or comment at the YouTube thing if you're like, I've got a dilemma I'd love to bring to either me and Dan and or special guests we bring. But we'll do it once a month. And so this was our time in November. So thanks again, Daniel Condon. Thanks again, Daniel Hoffman. And we can't promise that we'll have another Daniel two-syllable last name that ends in N next month. We hope you will join us then as we work through another dilemma as our network supports each other. Until then, thanks so much. Wishing you a happy holiday week. And until then, I think hopefully we'll reconnect in December. Take care, everybody. Thanks for watching.